every week that can make your life a little bit simpler or help you gain a little bit of knowledge. Today is no exception. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about this amazing lady, and then we're going to get started. But she is a brain-based movement specialist. I really don't know what that is, and I can't wait to find out. She's also a fall prevention specialist, and she is the creator of Neuro Power Pilates. I would like to welcome Jan McGrath. Jan, how are you today?
Good morning, Nicole, and thank you so much for having me here. I am doing great.
I'm glad. And it's so to see all these things together because, having an aging parent, having a grandma, having people around me, including myself, these are such important things. I don't Tell us about brain based movement.
Absolutely. So basically, if you have back pain or you have a chronic knee problem or just brain fog, instead of looking at the back where the back pain is or the knee where the knee pain is and so forth, I look at your brain. So I
Mm.
basically intentionally look how clearly you're receiving your sensory information, how well you're seeing, how well you're reacting to the world around you, how you walk. And that's basically a conversation for me with your brain and nervous system. And so just by looking at the way you walk, just the way you move your eyes, just the way you hold your balance, your strength, or any other functional movement, how you sit, how you stand, is a window for me to say, oh, this is what's going on with Nicole's brain. Let's upregulate her cerebellum, that back baby brain. Let's deregulate or lower down her amygdala or her brainstem, and on and on. And it's very specific, just like your little thumbprint is specific and individualized to you. Your brain is very unique to you. So I customize what will work for your brain, your nervous system, to unlock and basically reduce whatever area you're stuck in, whether you're stuck in back pain, knee pain, or just sports performance, or uh, um, when you're working your 9 to 5 job, maybe you've hit that plateau with your focus and reaction time. I can help with that.
Wow, that's a lot. Now, how did you learn about this? Because we know about the brain, but when you're looking at the brain to find out the other secrets of the body, that to me is amazing. So, how did that come about?
So I started as a athlete. I was a long distance runner for years and years. After 5 foot surgeries, five, I started
Mm.
to realize I need to find a different sport. I decided to try Pilates. Pilates was great, and I decided to become a Pilates instructor. And the thing that fascinated me about Pilates is we would look at all these anatomy books, but we never touched on the brain. And that got me into a rabbit trail and finding out for myself that I can harness applied neurology, which is basically targeting the brain to help you transform your movement and be certified in that. I never heard of that before. It was actually through, just like I said, finding out through my own research that you don't have to, crack open and do neuroscience on every person's brain. It's just basically knowing what parts of the brain to activate and deregulate through very specific exercises. That's where I could help not only my Pilates clients, but other individuals. And I'll give you an example. Just last week, a minor, 11-year-old mom was very concerned about her son who was basically not reacting and responding in what she would say normal speed. So he would be going from 0 to 60 emotionally
Ooh.
and over the smallest thing. And she tried traditional modalities, therapy, counseling, massage, acupuncture, just to help her son relax. And I had done a talk and I said, it was all about neuroplasticity, which is basically a big word about our bendy brain, and it's always constantly changing. So she came, met with me in real time. We found 3 exercises for her son that they can do actively at home so that he can react normally and not, in her words, overreact. And really, what I found with him was that basically he was not seeing well. One of his eyes converges, has a lag. That's one.
Yeah.
So when your brain is frustrated because you're not seeing bifocally, which you should, it's going to get angry and it's going to say there's a threat. So your brain is always looking for safety and survival for you moment by moment. The second thing we found is that because he had what I call noisy brain, not getting all the sensory information accurately, then his brain gets confused again, feels under threat. And so, with all that compounded, the little boy was always ready to be going from 0 to 60 in a nanosecond. And so, the
Wow.
report since then, since we met, she texts me to say, exercises are working well, and my son is reacting normally, which is great.
Oh, that had to make you feel so good, didn't it?
It really does. And this is why I do what I do, because as I mentioned earlier, as a long distance runner who had 5 foot surgeries, before I got to that place, I was going to the chiropractor, to the massage therapist, to an osteopath, the PT, and I would go through that week after week, month after month, so that I could maintain my sport, which is long distance running. Now, apart from the fact that the sport was probably not for me, just how I was running mechanically and biomechanically. The point was that when going to these other uh, professionals, I never got to the root problem. And the reason I think that I never got to the root problem was every one of those modalities we're looking from the neck down. And the future
Oh,
is to look from the top down. So I'm a brain down gal because this is the control center for all movement. All movement is brain derived. And so realizing that and going through all of that, I had to heal myself before I could then start doing the same for others. And I truly, Nicole, I love what I do because I'm never giving people a protocol. I'm giving someone healing and transformative life. Because again, I had another client also 2 weeks ago who had back surgery December 2025 for years and years, back pain, never walking her life without back pain, had the back surgery, still has back pain, went through PT, still has back pain, went and saw me, back pain reduced. And she said that I'm doing the exercises that I customized for her, and she's noticing a pattern of reducing pain. And all this is because our brain only wants to do one thing: keep us alive. And if any of the sensory input that we have, how well we see, how well we feel, how well we touch, those 5 senses we learned from kindergarten, but there's 100 more sensory information. If any of that is foggy, we have noisy brain, and that means we will not function well. And our brain will instead send outputs of pain, brain fog, migraines, anxiety, stress, depression, on and on. So if you start from the top, everything else is going to function better.
that's so interesting because so many, like I've had hip problems, but so many people have problems. And what you're telling me, these are not things that you're like taught in a college of medicine or taught anyplace else. You've learned this from your own knowledge of the brain down, haven't you?
Yes. And, let's go back to what you just said, academia. What we know now about the brain is something that has been known in the last 25, 30 years. So, in defense of all these other modalities, let's say medical school and chiropractic school and massage school and on, well, the textbooks only presented what was known then. And so when I talk about what I know, it's data neuroscience-based data that has been now more known because we have the technology to look into our brain more in depth, whereby what I'm providing is now accurate, present, science-backed. So I actually was working with a student who is a university student who wants to scholarship in track and field, and his sport is high jumping. Chronic hip pain for the last 3 years. No one knew. In fact, they actually said his pain is just all in his head. And
Oh, wow.
ironically, that is actually true. Pain is an output from your brain. Okay. It's a behavior modification. So if the brain thinks it's under threat, like I said, it will send out pain signal to prevent you from doing something that the brain perceives is threatening. In any event, this young man has the problem is resolved. I have not seen him since. He is high jumping and so forth, and he's been provided the exercises that is working for his brain, his nervous system. Now, what is he studying? He is studying exercise science, university level. And I was very curious. I was curious, what is the current exercise science curricula that you need to get the degree? Nicole, nowhere in there is neuroanatomy, applied neuroscience in the curriculum. So you understand what I'm trying to say?
Hmm.
Whatever the modalities are, whether it's chiropractics or yoga or massage therapy, physical therapy, that is not in the present coursework. Now, are people becoming aware of all of this? I think so. And we can just go back to the Winter Olympics. There was a freestyle skier who had an interview, and one of the interviews went viral. Um, she said the word, her name is Eileen Gu, and she said the word neuroplasticity. And that is a word that has been floating around, honestly, since the 1960s. But as far
Oh,
as
wow.
getting into the mainstream and out there, it used to be in the fringes, okay? But in the last, I would say, 3 years, it's kind of creeping into the conversation so that all those good professionals, whether they are physical therapists or chiropractic, massage therapists, acupuncturists, they could all have another layer of good information, and this good information is applied neurology, which is what I sought to be credentialed in.
Wow. And you talk about it not being in the schools, and my question to you would be, because I'm somewhat of one of those conspiracy people, would that be because if it was included, it would be a whole different ballgame, and they wouldn't. What I see in doctors, physicians, whomever, their first thing is to cut, and their second is to medicate. So if you
You,
take it to the brain, you got a
yeah,
whole different ball game.
it's I don't know if there's a conspiracy. I think it's more of you don't know until you know, and good information in order for good information, and good information can exist with other good information. It doesn't have to mean that everything I learned in medical school is out, out, thrown away. A medical doctor could have another layer of good information, and this applied neurology, like I said. I think the thing is that sometimes things that are kind of new and not familiar seems kind of uncomfortable. And
Right.
so if all that you know is what generationally, mom, grandma, if something hurt, they went to the doctor, and the doctor would prescribe or say, hey, go ahead and do these, maybe do some stretches, go to the physical therapist. And that's kind of the general norm. I will tell you that because of COVID, I really believe now people are seeking uh, alternatives because
I agree.
they want to be more informed. And so what I said earlier about, applied neurology, um, a brain-based approach to how we handle movement and how we handle our own well-being, I think is now less in the fringes and coming more inward. I wouldn't say it's mainstream. I think it's going to take a little while because the kind of clients I find, or rather seek me out, are people who've tried it all and they've come to the end of themselves and they're kind of a why not. So, what I would love to see is obviously more of this, more coming into mainstream because I I am an advocate for movement freedom, not to medicate, not go into polypharma, not to be passive about it, as in let's get another massage, let's go ahead and get more chiropractics or PT. Rather, you be part of that change by, again, I don't really want people to keep coming to me. I actually, like I said, give you the exercises through what I see, what your nervous system needs. And typically, Nicole, I don't see them. I may see some people a bit more frequently, like I had a client with minor cerebral palsy. You know, that took a few more months. But other than these other situations where it's, let's say it's pain, it's brain fog, it's performance, it's a ballerina or gymnast who wants more flexibility, a person who is academically, they want better focus, a senior person who wants to better do reaction time so that when that yellow light hits, they can decide faster and not be caught in a, I don't know, and God, hopefully an auto accident doesn't happen. you know, I I deal with a whole gamut. Wherever we use our brain, that's where I come into the equation.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And do you think, obviously, with the internet and places, we have more places to research now than of just, your parents, okay, you got to go to the doctor, you got to go to the doctor. I
Yeah.
had an earring stuck in my ear, and my dad's like, got to go to the doctor. It's like, doctors don't cut out metal. So they're just, people are so conditioned. And I think
Yes.
more people do want alternative methods, because when it's not working for you, pain
Yes.
is horrible. You know,
Yes.
pain
Yes.
is horrible. And
Yes.
so, I see you're talking about also a fall prevention specialist. Can you expound on that a little bit?
So yes, getting back to my Pilates. So in here is my in-home studio, and when I worked with a number of individuals, and I'm talking people from their 30s up to 70s, even 80s, uh, every day, as long as we are bipeds walking, we are going to fall. It's always this constant fight with gravity. And what's funny about this is that it's not funny, really. When I see my clients, I end up doing some level of rehab Pilates because they have fallen. And I'm talking people that even in teens, okay, and what are they doing, right? Sometimes, not all, they're crossing the street with their phone, their media device, and they're looking down on their screen, not necessarily the traffic. And then, of course, I have other types of fall situations, often around the home or within a 1 mile radius of their home, because we are kind of in autopilot. It's kind of familiar turf. So falling happens far more than people realize. It is probably the number two accident other than an auto accident that happens.
Oh,
Really.
wow. I had no idea.
Yes. And so falling is a perpetual cycle. It actually almost gets worse because once you have fallen, it's very traumatic. It alters your gait. You're now touching as you walk, and you're very cautious. And when you're moving in that momentum, which is very slow, you actually perpetuate your falls. So what happens then? You don't want another fall. Your slow gait has now made you sedentary. Now your muscles atrophy. And cognitively, this atrophies. Yes, as I said, your brain is bendy and it's a use it or lose it organ. And honestly, we only have a fixed amount of cortical real estate. And if we don't use it, the brain is an energy hog. It will go ahead and relax and be lazy. So you see how this falling thing is a cycle? Because once you fall, you want to prevent the fall. And the way you would think to prevent is best is basically don't move. Stay seated.
Safety.
Yes, and grab the remote control and live your life on the screen. And I know
Mm-mm.
that seems like a big stereotype, but it actually happens. And the reason I know this is because some of my, like I said, with my privates, Pilates clients, if they don't see me, they will tell me what they did for the rest of the week, which is not living well for their brain and the rest of their body. The other way I know is not only through research, but also I have worked with retirement senior centers, and I see a lot of weakness. So, weak muscles, weak bones is not going to help you fight that uh, game of gravity well, and you will fall.
Wow,
So,
that's crazy.
and then to add, Nicole, most people that as they get older, they get into what I call polypharma. So it's basically taking 4 or more prescription drugs. And polypharma, when you take 4 or more, it's like wild, wild west. How, they may have this long list of all these precautions and side effects. Well, unfortunately, the pharmacist doesn't necessarily know the other 3 that you might be taking, okay,
True.
prescription drugs. And so how they react chemically is not necessarily known. Like I said, it's wild, wild west. So that is not going to help you in terms of preventing your falls. In fact, it's proven that it will increase your likelihood of falling. So I got into this fall prevention thing. As I said, I'm an advocate for movement freedom. I do not want people to keep coming to me to do rehab Pilates. I want people to have the movement freedom to not necessarily rely on my Pilates equipment, but if you can do Pilates on the mat, which is where I believe it's at, fabulous, because now you can maintain your own strength in your own apartment, wherever you can carry that mat. And the way that I have looked at it is I will teach people how to prevent their falls. And I'm not talking about standing on one leg like a little flamingo all day long. I am going to start at the top. Once again, exercises that will activate your brain, help it to know that everything is hunky-dunky and safe, and naturally to work with the biomechanical part, neck down, to help you become stronger.
Well, I've been a yoga girl for probably 20 plus years. I love it. What is the difference between yoga and Pilates? Should I do both or should I switch to Pilates as I age?
So I used to do yoga myself, and the reason I chose Pilates is because yoga, I know some yogis teach it with a spiritual component. I only want an exercise. As I said, I was a long distance runner. I just want to run. I don't run anymore. So Pilates is simply an exercise, and the difference I find is Joseph Pilates, who created that exercise, he wanted you to make sure your body was prepared, so it was in proper Pilates alignment before you moved. So he was
Mm,
never about hyperflexibility, push to pain. He was all about control. And so I always think of the ABCs with Pilates. It's all about alignment, it's all about your breath, and it's all about your control and core. And that precision is vital, and it moves with a flow. Okay. So I can actually do Pilates no matter if I've never done it before. I'm not hyper flexible. I'm just kind of moving from sofa to starting. And that's what I love about it. You can start, and it is an exercise that meets you where you're at, and it's safe. And the safest place to practice it is on the mat.
wow.
Pilates has all these pieces of equipment. This is just some of what you see behind me because it was designed, the equipment, to rehabilitate you. so that once you were well and you were fine, you can now hop onto the mat, which is, like I said, the safest and hardest place to practice Pilates, because Pilates is basically resistance training and you're
Hmm.
resisting your own weight. Or you can obviously add bands and loose weights and resist the equipment. So I liked, I love teaching mat Pilates because it's affordable. If you can find some exercise modality that is affordable, you're going to keep on doing it. And again, I'm an advocate for movement freedom. I don't want costs. Pilates, Lux Pilates equipment to prevent you and price you out. If you can afford a mat, which is $20, you probably could practice Pilates just about anywhere. And I do teach Pilates every week. Neuropower Pilates is what I call it, because I get to marry that brain fitness with Pilates fitness and put those two together.
That's amazing. And I heard you mention breath. Now there's a whole new movement of, the breath work, which I've always believed in. I mean, we have to breathe, we have to oxygenate. How does that play into what you're doing with the brain health?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in order for our brain to function, okay, it needs two things. Okay, it needs fuel, which is oxygen and glucose, basically food, good, healthy food, and activation. Okay, so that activation part is where I come into every time I work with someone with neuro. But I will tell you, getting back to the oxygen, most of us, when we breathe, and I have gone to places where breath work is the main purpose of the course. It's about deep breathing, okay? And what I really want people to think about with breath work, it's balancing that biochemistry that's happening in your brain. You can change your mood. You can change your stress level. You can change your focus by the way that you breathe, okay? So most people, when I ask them to breathe, what they do is I call these shoulders little toasters, okay? Like little slices of bread. They breathe and they actually puff up their chest, and I think they're trying to get extra credit for their breath. And I say, no, no, relax the shoulders. You don't have to puff it up. And really what I aim for generally is that the inhale is always through the nose, not through the mouth. And then when you exhale, you control that exhale and slow it down. Because typically people inhale and then they blow it out. And that's not enough to affect this in the right way. So typically I'll say, go ahead and inhale for 4 and then exhale for 5. That's just
Okay.
an easy formula. But when I'm working with a client, and it could be an executive, and say, hey, I am a keynote speaker for ABC. What are some exercises that I can do? And I will be very specific for that particular person because of their particular brain and nervous system.
Wow, that you've got so much information. I could talk to you all day. Unfortunately, we're already at the end, and that went so fast, but you've got so much information, and
Thank you.
everybody can use it. It's not person specific. It's like everybody can use this. So to the audience, I have links to where you can find Jan, and I would highly suggest you do that. What I love this, I love being able to interview people because I always learn something, always. And this has been an amazing interview. You're amazing. And is there, just give us a little nugget? Where should someone start? What's an easy way to start this journey?
Well, I want to leave this takeaway. I want you to be intentional about thinking about your brain health, your brain fitness. Think about it now, not when you retire. This is not about Sudoku. This is not about crossword puzzles, okay? This is about being intentional, because I'm going to say this: your physical body's age does not need to match your brain age. Do you follow me? I'm saying that you can have a healthy brain that is outpacing your physical body. And try your very best not to flood yourself and Google like crazy, because there's a lot of information out there, not necessarily a lot of wisdom. So a place that I would start is just visiting my website, brainfit.biz, because I explain, I have a resource library, and all that resource library is science-based, is fact-based, it's through my own study. So that's a good starting point.
Wow. Thank you so much for all this information. I mean, everybody needs this, you know,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
We've all got brains, we all breathe. So I'm going to go with
Yeah.
everyone. So this is very, very important. But what I want to do is thank you for coming on today. I
Thank
always
you.
appreciate someone's time, and you have put so much into this half hour that I would just tell everybody to get a hold of you, go to your website, and take what you can from Jan, because this makes more sense to me than so many things. So thank you, Jan, for
Thank
coming
you,
on
Nicole.
today.
Yes.
You've been an absolute joy. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Nicole. You have a good one.
Thank
Bye.
you.